Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Brought to you by Junk Be Gone and the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Welcome into the Sports Source. It's already begun here off camera. Appreciate you being here on this Sunday morning. We have a lot to talk about. We got football, we got basketball, we got baseball. We're going to cover them all today. And let's just jump right in since we got so much to get through. First segment of our program today brought to you by Junk Be Gone. Junk removal, small or large items, do it yourself or have their teams loaded up for you. Paper shredding for your business. Even small demolition work, like if you need a shed taken down or fencing or even a boat that needs to be taken apart before it's removed, they do all of that. Trust Junk Be Gone for any of your junk removal needs. Check them out at junkbegone.biz to learn more about what they can do for you or your company. junkbegone.biz. Okay, let's welcome in today's first wave of panelists. We have Bob Hodge, longtime sports writer, back with us. Bob, thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Right there, Jimmy Hines from WNML AM and FM. You can hear him from 3 to 7 Monday through Friday on Sports Talk. Jimmy, thanks.
Thank you.
And longtime sports writer Chuck Cavaleras down there. I started to say Chuck Sports Writer. Longtime Cavaleras, Chuck Sports Writer.
Long-time Cavaleras.
Chuck, thanks for being here.
Cavaleras even longer than he's been a sports writer.
That's right. He has been a Cavaleras longer than a sports writer. All right. By the way, just want to start with our own little bit of information here for those of you who like to email me and say, why are you doing this and why aren't you doing that? 2 weeks ago, we covered UT baseball for the entire first half of that program. Led into the regional game, the clincher against LSU, and then we went in the back half of the show and we talked football. And you know, I had the usual, nobody cares about football right now, idiot. Talk about baseball. Do you know which half of the show got better ratings that day? Football. I'm not anti-baseball on the show. We're talking it here to start the show. But for those of you who always hammer me on, why don't you talk about these other things? Because the vast majority of ball fans out there, the folks who drive these ratings, most of you out there, care more about football than you do anything else in the world. So that's why I divvied up the way I do. Don't email me later today when we start talking about other topics. But let's start by talking baseball. The Volunteers made it all the way to the College World Series. Heck of a year, farther than anyone anticipated. They get out there and don't look good in their opener. Looked a little tentative, a little timid, and then played a tough team in Texas. Tennessee was ranked third, Texas ranked second. Lost to Texas in that second game. They were out in 2. Arizona was out in 2. That's the number 5 team in the country. But as expected, there was the normal backlash from some folks. If you go online, there always is, and there were the folks who said Vitello is like Barnes, can't win the big one. You saw some people say, well, go ahead and give him a participation trophy if you want to. If you don't win, it's not count. And then there were several people who said, well, this just proves they overachieved. They weren't really elite. Now, the positive thing that I was surprised by, because I thought you'd have more of that, a lot of that was shot down. A lot of other Vol fans shot that down as nonsense because I think that's what it is. But let me ask you guys, just on that one last point, did going out there and losing your first 2 games show that this team really wasn't as elite as people may have thought going into the World Series? Did that run make people think they were better than they are? Bob,
you want words or just head shakes?
Just head shakes. While other people answer, you can just shake your head.
No, I mean, they were definitely elite. It's a team that lost 2 series for the entire season. You lost one of them to the team that's now playing for the national championship. You lost the other one to the team that at the time was ranked number 1 in the country. I think that's pretty dadgum elite. And I think you won in both those series. You won 1 game. So you were what is that? 4-2 against team playing for national championship, number 1 team in the country. 2-4, excuse me.
Yeah.
So yes, you were elite.
I thought they were too, and obviously you get into the debate to define elite. Well, if you get to the College World Series, you're pretty darn good. If you're the 3rd seed, you're pretty darn good. If you win the SEC East, you're pretty darn good, and I think most would argue that the SEC has the best baseball in the country. So when you factor all those things together, I think you had an elite team. Great season. Obviously, a little bit of a disappointing end to the season, but still, to me, I thought that was a terrific season by Tennessee, and I'd put this season in the elite category.
Yeah, it's so important when you get there, guys. You really have to win that first game. 35 of the last 39 teams that won the College World Series won that first game. And you went up against a good Virginia team that had won 6 elimination games. And they had an All-American left-hander who was really on. So that first game, and then your bats are quiet, and you're playing in a ballpark that's like 18 to 20 feet deeper all the way around. I thought, if anything, the emotional ride they were on just kind of maybe fizzled a little bit when you're on the road in a bigger ballpark. And it is a bigger stage. And if you look at the Tennessee lineup, what was an elite was how many 300 hitters you had. You had several guys that are around that 255, 260. So
you're saying they weren't elite?
Well, I mean, I'm saying when you get to the College World Series and the competition is better, it's a bigger ballpark, you're away from home, there are areas that you can obviously show up that you can improve.
But I think that's true of everybody. I don't think that means you're not elite, though.
Well, I'm not saying you weren't elite. I'm just saying it gets tougher.
No,
You're
but when
saying
I
they
put
didn't
it,
have elite batting average.
Well, they didn't have. No, they didn't. And
Right.
you can look through that lineup and see that.
when I take what you say and twist it, you're saying they weren't elite. No, but I mean, there were plenty of. I mean, you only get 2 teams in the finals. The other 6 had to lose.
Yeah.
And Arizona went out with 2 games. Their first 2 games. Tennessee goes. That's a number 5 team, number 3 team. The number 1 team in the nation that you mentioned, Arkansas, didn't even make it. So I guess they weren't elite. I mean, I get the idea that you mentioned the word disappointing. Okay, that's fine. I get disappointment. Well, you wanted to see them make a better run than they did. Fine, that's legit. That's anybody would feel that.
Sure.
Anger, though.
No.
You know, when
no
a team gets past your expectations, and you get your hopes up because of that, and your expectations rise above it, instead of saying, "Wow, we're playing with house money," you're now saying, "Well, you better win." That to me is not fair. I think
really-
that's a way to. That's the chemistry that creates a miserable fan.
Well, but I ought to be taken out of the discussion. As a Minnesota Vikings fan, I'm always used to end of season disappointment. So to me, it's just part of the cards. But when you look back at a 50-win season, winning the East, all these things. Okay, here's bad baseball. You don't go to Hoover for the SEC tournament.
Yeah.
And you've had a lot more of that since 2005 than you had going to the College World Series. So all the people that get angry and he can't win the big one, he's another Barnes. Okay, let's say he is another Rick Barnes. You go to the NCAA tournament every year. With this team, maybe you go to the NCAA regionals or the super regionals every year. Is that such a horrible thing?
That's a great point. If you could guarantee right now, if you keep Vitello, and we'll get to that in a second, if you keep him and you have him here for the next 20 years and he turns out to be Rick Barnes, would Tennessee fans be happy with that? I would look at it, if I'm in the Tennessee administration, never in trouble, recruiting aces, competed for titles, isn't going to win the national title, but competes for league title. I'm going to be ecstatic if this guy could be the next Rick Barnes of baseball. But would fans want that? It's a different question.
Yeah, well, and also to me, to compare it to Rick Barnes right now is kind of silly because Rick Barnes has been a head coach for 38 years.
Yeah.
And Vitello's been at Tennessee 4 years, and he took over a program that was in shambles. So, no, I don't think that comparison is relevant at all. But I do think that what Vitello has done, I think with his recruiting, with the staff that he's got, the direction he's got, and with the in-state talent that the state of Tennessee has, I think he can sustain this success. And wouldn't you rather play for the World Series and lose than not get there at all?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
To me, I'd say yes.
Yeah, who was more embarrassed, Arkansas for not making it or Tennessee making it and getting out too? Let me ask you that. You touched on it a little bit, so just a quick take. Did this team suffer from the fact that maybe they hadn't had Omaha experience in a while? And some teams got NC State looked great until they had their COVID issues. So it plays differently. Could just be one guy, a pitcher or a batter who tensed up, didn't play like he did the whole year. But do you think that had a role?
Yes, I do think it had a role. You're sitting there watching the games, and by no means am I a baseball aficionado, but I thought you could see some tentativeness in Tennessee at times from the pitchers and the batters, especially against Virginia. It looked like the batters were going up there and, okay, do I swing, do I not swing? Okay, I'll check swing. Oh, it was a strike, should have swung. So I thought you could see some of it.
Yeah, the Tony Vitello line was you didn't have conviction. That's the line. You weren't locked in really. The way I kind of took it.
That's pretty telling.
Yes.
To me, that to answer your question, I think that suggests that yes, maybe for the first time all year, the moment was a little bit big for this team. I do think the Virginia pitcher was hot though. He's really good. But Bob, to your point, I thought Tennessee took too many strikes and swung at too many balls. They weren't as disciplined at the plate as they have typically been.
And you hate to go on and on about it, but that first inning, guys, you get runners on first and third and nobody out, and you don't get something on the board, and you end up getting shut out. You go into Omaha averaging 10 runs a game, you get shut out and score 4. So, I mean, something changed with the bats and the hitting for sure.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily, it will be interesting to see the next time they make it to Omaha, if it's relatively soon, and these guys, that team has this experience with them, do they look better? Did that impact them? We'll be able to look and see.
Well, and your coach will have that experience with him too, and that can make a difference.
Very good. All right. When we come back, is Tony Vitello now a lock to remain in Knoxville? The schools that everyone was scared were going to come after him, they went in other directions. Is he now a lock to be back with the Vols next year? We'll discuss that. Come on back on the Sports Source.